My conversation today on Behind the Act is with Chase Martinez. He's a songwriter, a producer, and an artist. And I've known Chase for over 20 years, and it feels like we're both on the move all the time, whether that's traveling or moving houses, spoiler alert, like we're doing soon. So today we're talking about how changing your environment boosts creativity, as well as how do you stay true to your own artistic vision in a world that has, at least up until now, valued virality over authenticity. I'm Seth Schaefer. This is Behind the Act with Chase Martinez. When we first moved to Nashville, I feel like you and I were like crossing paths on the way from Colorado and back to Nashville. Like, you know, you were here before.
Right.
And now we found this awesome spot and we love it and built the studio and went through that process. And then yesterday we signed a lease on a new place. So we're going to be moving, which you've done a lot of. And
yes.
When you move to a new spot, does that help you creatively or does it challenge or
I think it helps. I mean, honestly, I think traveling in general and just being in a different environment, even just like taking my computer or an instrument up into my bedroom or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Or like when I'm traveling, like especially when I'm on the road, I'll go just post up in random places, you know, like,
yeah.
And I feel like that environment always triggers something different that you wouldn't have wrote in just your studio or something.
Right.
You know what I mean? Whether in any kind of art, I'm a huge fan of changing your environment, you know?
How do you stay focused and driven when you have all of those distractions that show up?
Right.
Okay. I mean, okay, so it's easy to get distracted and excited about something in like seasons, but I feel like you have a pretty constant output that is self-motivated mostly, right? Or completely, right?
Yeah, I think it's just guilt and shame. I'm just kidding.
Are you kidding?
No, I don't know. I mean, there's just like things, maybe I just have expectations of like who I wanted to be and what I want to create. And I've had pretty consistent expectations of like who I've seen myself as and what I wanted in life. And so it's like there's always kind of a North Star and, you know, in that. So that kind of drives a lot of my decision making in everything I do, you know?
Is there an identity that you're trying to match or trying to hold up?
So.
Okay.
If I'm honest, I think I see myself a certain way, and that's like, I just have like things I've always loved doing, you know, and I get so much life out of getting better at it, you know, and it's always rewarding when you're like, oh, I got, 5% better at something that was really hard for me a month ago, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like that just kind of, it's always like the rabbit hole.
So it's a constant improvement process that you're focused on? I mean, is it the showing up daily that's the win for you? Or is it every time you release a song, there's this big dump and excitement and then you go through cycles? Or is it kind of, I mean, how do you?
I think I would love, like anyone probably, I would love to get praise and worshipped and validation and fame and success and all that, you know. But I think at least for now, it's like I truly love just like making. There's nothing more fun than either like, you start with a seed of an idea like in a room with your friends and you're like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then watching how that evolves. And then you're like, whoa, we made this entire like song or video project or like literally anything, you know. I think for a long time in my younger years, it was very focused around music, and I've kind of like, as I've tried to like know who I am and what really drives me, all to say like I just love making things.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you have
like from like infancy and like having them grow, you know?
Yeah.
That's whether I think it's the same, it's like the same principle in anything, you know? Like whether it's painting or whatever, kind of like get the same rush
yeah,
from all of it.
I guess tell me what you're doing right now, like just for clarifying stuff for people that are listening. Like, you're an artist.
Oh yeah, like I'm a music artist called project called Lost Terra, and I also produce and write songs for various people and with various different artists and producers for a bunch of different reasons, you know. Lately my focus has really been on like, okay, I really have always had this like burning desire to have like my artist project be like the main thing I'm immersed in, you know?
Yeah. How do you do that in this new world of crazy amounts of social media and tons of competition, and now AI coming in to be able to amplify the amount of content that's created by a bunch of other people? Like, I mean, the differentiation aspect of it. Like, what's your view on that?
Like how to be in this new modern age, or like
the other day we were out filming a music video. Right. And why the music video?
I think there's always a balance for me where it's like, well, and I haven't cracked any codes that I want to crack yet, but there's always this like, oh, I should do this because it's like viral. It's the new viral thing to do. But then there's like, but I really want, you know, I have this idea for this video and maybe like 100 people will see it. But I'd rather like, as an artist, it's like, I feel like you should always make what you feel inspired to make, whether it's going to be, you know, it's optimal for an algorithm or not, you know?
Absolutely.
Like, I don't think that's bad either. Like, I think I probably need to make a lot more things that are good for that, you know, to grow as a business or an artist or whatever. But
yeah,
there is a part of me that's like, I just want to like make something that I'm so proud of and uncompromised. And, you know,
yeah,
I think what I'm learning too is like, yeah, you can take the principles of things and then you still have to like be creative, you know? It's like, okay, you have 30 seconds to make something, a piece of art. Cool, that's your box. Or 1 minute or 30 minutes, you know? It's like, it's fine to be in these boxes. It's just like accepting your limitations. And I feel like when you do accept your limitation, then it's like, there's something weird about limiting yourself. I feel like that allows creativity, weirdly. I feel like a lot of artists are like, and I've always been this way too, where I'm like, I don't want any rules, or I don't want any like, I don't want to be don't put me in a box. I want to leave this like unicorn flying through the nothingness.
Right.
But I think there is something special about like, no, I have like a guitar and this drum machine. That's all.
And a deadline.
And it has to be done in 2 hours.
Yeah.
That was such a powerful energy. Like, I feel like some of the best things I've ever done are like usually with a deadline and a constraint like that, you know?
Definitely.
Self-imposing those, like kind of circling back to what you're saying, I think that is difficult to do.
Yep.
I've started to rely on the accountability of like other people more with that.
So as far as limitations go, dude, talking with Kevin, you know, he's been crushing releasing a song a week, and that kind of output is crazy as far as like the focus and everything. And I've been I have been doing the podcast once a week, and make sure I get a new episode out every Tuesday. And there are a lot of times I am not feeling it. I'm not wanting to show up, but I know I need to, because that's the number one thing for me as far as a weekly schedule goes. Like the social media posts and the music stuff are not second in importance necessarily, but me hitting a deadline of getting that episode out Tuesday morning every week, that's been helping me.
I think we all need that, you know? Like one of mine's is like I'm going to the gym every day. I've always been pretty active, but you know, especially living in Nashville, the winters kind of get rainy and it's just like it's hard to be like, oh, I'm going for a hike for me here when I'm living in the city, you know?
Yep.
But like just having that thing where you're like, I go every day,
Yep.
you know?
Yep. Yeah. I used to play an absurd amount of disc golf every week, you know, like literally like probably 10 rounds or something a week. And I felt so good physically and mentally and all that stuff. And then here it's been, you know, an average of, I would say 2 to 3 times a month.
Yeah.
And man, it really has hit me. It's affected me a lot, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find that thing. And Nashville is not as easy as Grand Junction, Colorado
Right.
to find the outdoors things. But that's kind of a silly excuse because there's skate parks and hiking trails. And
yeah, I agree with that. There is like I feel like the environment you're in too, with like what the people around you do with their time. And yeah, Colorado people are all about their outdoors though, you know?
Yeah.
So, like definitely have to be more intentional with getting outside and kind of, for me at least here, living here.
Right. So with the constraints, I mean, you're playing with obviously great players, tons of any option that you want as far as equipment goes, basically.
Yeah.
How do you self-impose or is that just like a habit you have, your own limitations in order to get to the next steps creatively? Or is there like a trigger that you're like, I feel stuck, so I'm going to limit myself for a second?
I think now I've tasted, or like I've had enough. I've played with all the cool toys, you know, which is kind of fun. Like whatever, expensive speakers and all of that, you know, I've like messed with all of it. And I feel like at some point I finally realized like it helps, but it can just be equally a distraction, you know, because there's always that kid that's like 17, just wrote his first like little batch of songs with his laptop and you know, crappy guitar or whatever, and you're like, whoa, this is so good. And you know, I think that was something cool about Nashville that I've gotten to experience here, is just seeing people that are just creative, you know. It's like you can make a fantastic record with $100,000 of gear, or you can make an awful record with $100,000 worth of gear, you know?
Right.
And it's like, just tried to focus more on the heart of the song and my writing lately, you know?
So talk to me about that. What does the heart of the song mean for you?
In fact, there's a point when you're like learning anything new that you have to like imitate other things, you know, to get your chops or get aware of how to do things. But I think now I'm in a place where I'm like, I kind of just want to take all this stuff that I've been soaking in for years and years and years, and just take all the little things I like about all of them and make my favorite songs, you know?
Yep.
And
so finding your voice is like
I guess that'd be the way to say it. It's like, how do I sing? How do I write? How do I produce? How do I mix?
Yeah.
And why, you know, it's like, there is always this magic. I think that's the feeling I'm always chasing, is the magic of when you do take all these things that you've said are great in your head and you find the perfect balance in it, like all just is like into sync. And then you're like, that's it. You know, it's like this rush that it's hard to explain unless you've just worked hard on something, you know, that, and taken a risk on your ideas before, you know. It's like the drug that keeps you coming back.
In my view, not being risky feels more risky. Does that make sense? Like if you go do the same thing that everybody else has done, you've got a pretty high chance of never being noticed or providing really creative value to people that kind of stands out.
Right. No, I agree. I think, I don't know, man. There's like, you could say a million things about it. I don't Because there's people that just do things that are like, oh yeah, that's a folk song, and there's
Yeah.
a million of them out there, but that person is just good. So it's not like it hasn't been done before.
Yeah.
But there is a feeling, and I think that it's hard to like touch on. I think people feel it though. It's not always logical, like why it's good or why it's genuinely authentic sounding or feeling. It's just like a feeling you get.
Yeah.
You know, it's like how someone speaks to you. You can tell in their tone of voice if they're saying like something very genuine or if it's like phoned in, you know,
Yeah.
like someone's taking your order at the restaurant and they're like, how are you doing today? And it sounds like they've said that like 100 times. So it's just like a thing they have to say.
Yeah. No,
And then there's like your friend calling you and be like, yo, how are you doing, man? I've been thinking about you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, wow, that feels very genuine, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the same in art. If I could extract like the principle, you know?
I love that. I want to clarify too, and just say that when I say, you know, not being risky is really risky, what I really mean is what you're saying. It's like if you do something that's really basic and you love it,
Right.
keep doing it. Like,
Yeah,
you know, like
totally.
do it because that is the honest passion that you have.
Right.
And if it sounds like a bunch of other people, it's fine as long as it's making you thrilled and fed. Like it's going to keep you moving. So I didn't mean that as like you have to force yourself to be risky. But I think that if you're tempted to be risky and afraid to do that, it's a good thing just to remember that it's riskier to do something that's not sincere to yourself in order to try to copy things,
Right.
than to be true to yourself creatively.
Totally.
So.
Yeah. And I think that can be an internal like dialogue with yourself. You know, you're like, am I making this because I am genuinely excited about it, or am I making it because I want to be like accepted?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think maybe there's an art even in balancing that.
Yeah.
Like it's so subjective, but as far as like getting fulfillment from it, maybe.
Yeah.
I think you know when you're phoning it in and when you've like kind of taken a little bit of a risk for you, right?
Yeah.
And it's no one's place really to judge. I mean, people will judge if they like it or not, and that's their like right
You
to
can't
do
control
that. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Where do you want to be in a few years? Whatever that is, like views 5 or 1 or whatever, you know?
This was hard for me to say even like a year ago, but like I'm kind of at the point now where I'm just like, maybe I'm just getting older and I'm like, whatever, I gotta like name it and claim it, you know? But it's like, I do want to be like, you know, I would love to be touring full time and playing big shows and like, you know, I want success.
Awesome. Yeah.
But for me, I think it's more of a means to an end, because it's like my dream is to like be out there able to, you know, I want to see the world more. I want to be around other people like me more.
Yeah.
Creating. I want to travel. I want to play music. I love playing concerts. It's like live music's been something I got to do at a very young age, with my dad and like our church, and like, I've always just like played a ton of live music, you know?
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I would love to do that, I think, for the rest of my life, really. And on top of that, I think I'm just always going to be chasing the high of making the next best thing I can possibly do, you know?
Yeah. I see you also, your entire life, that I've seen you have this drive to go conquer something, and it seems like no fear to do it sometimes, and and then also welcome others in that journey, and like and encourage other people. So it's really not a question, it's just a statement. I appreciate that about you a lot.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. I think people that know you listening to this are gonna feel that too. So
yeah, thanks for saying that. I don't always feel that way, maybe, but Yeah, I do. I mean, life isn't, it's no fun to be alone. And like, it'd be way cooler to have your whole gang with you along for the ride, right?
Yeah.
If you're like, I want to go, if I'm going to go on a road trip and I had the funds, I'd be like, get in the freaking van. Everybody, we're going to all the coolest places, you know?
Yeah.
Like, that's my favorite thing in life is really, it's like seeing, exploring life and the world and creativity and art and with people that I like, you know?
Yeah. What's your biggest fear then?
I don't know. Maybe the opposite of that, like being alone and dying of cancer tomorrow and not actualizing the dreams that I do have that I've held so dearly, you know? I think, and I mean, I'm always worried about losing like people that I love, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that's like a huge thing, I think. But I feel like I've even tried to make peace with that, I think.
Right.
Trying as I get older to make peace with it. You know? It's like all this is so temporary. I have to constantly, you know, I try and remind myself of that on bad days when I'm like, feel like it's not working how I want or whatever, finances are tight or whatever. It's like, yeah, that's, you know, everything's coming to an end at some point. So kind of makes me wake up with a little more vigor to like get as much as we can in, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. You started off with saying guilt and shame as your driver, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because those are words that mean things differently to different people. Like, define maybe a little bit of what that means to you, like the guilt and the shame.
Yeah. No, I think that it's like anything in life. It's like everything has a balance and a positive and a negative, you know, even those words, even though they're charged with negative connotations.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, maybe guilt and shame used correctly is a great motivator if pointed in the right direction. Anger is a good thing sometimes if used properly.
Right. Yeah.
Right? It has utility. Guilt and shame, though, specifically for me, is like, it's really hard for me to sit and watch like movies all day long. That's like or something like that, where it's like, I'm not doing, like, where I'm just gonna, I have to be like pretty hungover or something, you know,
or have the flu,
and then you're like, okay, like, hall passed on this binge. But yeah, I think I got distracted a lot in like maybe the last decade, here and there, kind of roller coaster. And I was younger. I don't know, just back to the idea that time is temporary. So it's like being more aware of it, being more honest with yourself about it. You're like, okay, maybe I only have so much time. So do I want to wake up today and just like screw off? Or do I want 60% of my potential, or do I want 100% if I can get it, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's where it comes in. It's like, it's definitely hard for me to just take the day off and chill. And sometimes I need to do that too.
Yeah, definitely. I have days, I mean, like anybody, I think, where you're just crushing it. And you're like, man, I got so much done and I'm happy. And I'm like, I just need to stay here and do this every single day. It's that simple. Just be like on point and not distracted. And, you know, and then like what I've learned, I think strongly over the last year or whatever, is that I know that the days following that, or a day following that, or hours following that the next day or something, I'm going to have unfocused, depressed sometimes days where like I just need to also give myself permission to go through that also, so that I can have those moments again of like the champion, you know, like task manager or whatever. And obviously there's habits that you can put into place to have more of that more often with, you know.
Sure.
But the cyclical nature of being like on point and sometimes not on point, but
right. Yeah. And it's like,
it's good to acknowledge, I guess, and without having guilt attached to those low points.
totally.
You know?
Yeah. That makes sense. It's, trying to find balance, I guess, always. I think that's been helpful being married too, which I've been married a few years now. And it's like, that has definitely been good for me as a man, and like having a woman in my life that reminds me, where I was like before, it's like just like all I think about is what I want to do all day long. I think it's been helpful having someone else intimately connected to my life, where it's like, okay, yeah, maybe you don't need 3 more hours. Maybe 3 hours away is actually more beneficial than 3 hours like staring at the screen, not actually getting anything done, or just sitting there looking at the wall, or whatever.
I've never done that. I've never sat at the computer and been ineffective, but I've heard other people do that. So stupid.
I believe you.
Yeah. Don't. I love it. Well, what's the answer to life, I guess? No,
don't ask.
I love it. Yeah, don't ask. That's funny.
Yeah, it's like, for real though, like,
yeah,
maybe that's a stupid question. Not that you asked it. Not that you asked it. It's just like a question. It's like, you can't ever know, and you're never gonna,
I actually love that answer so much. What's the answer to life? What a stupid question.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. We spend a lot of time. Yeah. It's like I feel bad saying it like that. It was more of like a philosophical
I didn't take
idea.
Like no, I love it.
Yeah,
No, it doesn't.
I know you wouldn't get offended because
no,
you're like,
I don't feel like you were saying that about, to me. I'm saying like it is a stupid.
Yeah.
It's maybe a fruitless quest to try to figure out. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
I mean, learn all you can, I guess.
Yeah.
But
when you see others winning and you feel excited for them, what about it drives you the most? Or like, what are the things you like to see for other people the most?
Something I've tried to push myself to do and learn, and like just become more natural now. But it's like, success doesn't have a limitation. So it's like, it's just cool to see people win, It's like, it tells you that it's like, oh, they did it, you could do it too. So on one hand, that's kind of how I try to look at it. And at the same time, it's like, just be happy for people that, like, there's enough bad in the world. It's like, hell yeah, it's cool when people do things that are good and inspiring. And, I think that's kind of like the essence of like love, it's not always, it's like, there's love, like when someone does something for no reason at all, but that they felt like they should try to do that thing,
Yeah.
And then, whatever, they win the Grammy or whatever. I think it's cool. It's like, it's good. The world is better for them doing that than not having it being done,
Right. Right. How do we help the world be a better champion of art in 2 ways? So one is, how do we help encourage people to create art? And then how do we also encourage people to champion others' art?
I think to do it just for the sake of it being done is the win. And that's like the place. I think that's, if you really think about it, that's the win.
There's a risk to creating art and being judged by that. But then there's also a risk to saying, I like this song, I like this painting, because we've all gone through that teenage moment where like, I love this song. And your friends are like, that's a stupid song. And you're like, well, am I stupid then? Or, but.
Yeah, I've gone through a lot of that, like different people growing up in like toxic relationships, or like being in bands, or like whatever. Well, a million different things, or even just like family or whatever, you know? Like, and I think there's just like, yeah, I get why people kind of cower behind, hide themselves, hide the light that they have. I think I have a little bit of an antagonist spirit in me that's kind of like maybe it's a chip on my shoulder type of thing from being a kid and being like a little bullied and stuff, you know, when you're younger. So it's like, there's a part of me that was always like, well, you like the win, like I said, it's still just like the satisfaction of like having an idea and knowing that you didn't give up on it and you followed it through, you know? Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like encouraging people to try and fail, whatever, fail.
Yeah.
You know, it's like being in the studio, like when we're making music and stuff, and someone goes, and I've gone through this, like it was really tough for me, but even just like, oh, I have this idea about what if it's like this melody, and just like singing it and not caring if it actually lands or not.
Right.
Just like express the idea, put it out there on the table. Don't care if it's bad, it won't land. If it's good, it will, you know?
Yep.
And being detached from whatever outcome. Of course, you want your idea to be picked, but at the end of the day, it's like, it's all about the best idea rising, you know?
Yep.
And
And
like,
you won't find it if you don't keep just trying. And
yeah, like put yourself out of the mindset of like, oh, okay, I have this like this precious thing. It has to be like a hit or something.
Yep.
And being like, okay, why don't we just try like 100 ideas, and then whatever the top 5, maybe then we'll go back to those and
Love it.
see what ones are the best out of that, you know?
Yep.
And everyone gets to put theirs on the table, and then it's not so precious. My friend's band, this was actually really inspiring, but he was saying, because I've been in bands and it was always very difficult to get everyone's like on the same page, and egos are just dripping and like, I want my part, no, I want my part louder, or I want my song to. And he was saying what they do is they'll write like whatever 50 songs or something, and then they get in a room with them and like their whole team, and they just listen to every song, and then they whittle it down by doing that. And then if someone's like, no, this song means a lot, I really want to see this through, then everyone has the opportunity to be like, yo, well, tell me more about it. Maybe I didn't see the potential.
Yeah.
Like, why are you willing to die for this song? Because if you're willing to die for it, then I'll follow you into battle on that one.
Yeah.
But like, you get the honest gut reactions first, you know? I thought that was really cool. So I've tried to be more like that lately with like even just my own ideas, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, all right, write 100 songs this year, and then you don't have to put all of them out.
Right.
You could put 10 of them out.
Right.
But write 100,
Right.
you know?
How often are you writing songs?
I'd say I'd say minimum at least one a week.
Right. And that's when you say song, is that like a song idea, or is that like a finished, we've got verse, chorus?
I try to
Production
do
vibe.
a full lyrical song, like with the track
Cool.
every week.
Awesome.
And probably even more than that, like demos or like a chorus in a track or
Right.
things that, you know,
Yeah.
or to make instrumentals.
How often are you releasing publicly?
We're trying to do one every month
Okay.
ish, 4 to 6 weeks with the Lost Terra project. I have like other artists I produce, you know, so it's kind of hard to say. I mean,
Proud of you, man. That's awesome.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So fun.
It's just fun to like, I mean, yeah, I think that takes the pressure off anything having like nothing is precious, you know?
That's gold right there. Literally. You know?
Like, cool, you made another song. That's kind of the weird thing about Nashville too, is it's like, because you're surrounded by so many amazing people that are so good, and literally everyone is like insanely talented. it's like it kind of puts you in your place a little bit too, because you're like, oh, it's just another song. But
Finishing a song is like, hey, I just did another hike.
yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. How was it? It's interesting. That's fun.
What are you most excited? I'm going to flip the interview. What are you most excited about? Like, what?
Well, the last 2 years have been, as I've told you, and I think I've said it on almost every episode, but is first off was build a studio, like learn how to build a studio, learn how things work. And then last year was music business focused. How in the world do these royalties flow? Why do they flow through what channels in order to do what? And how do you maximize that stuff? And who do I call if I don't know the answer to that? And now it's I'm kickstarting. I mean, you heard earlier, like the beginning of what I intend to be my first song, really, that I'm releasing publicly. And that's what I'm excited about, is releasing publicly without it being precious. I really like this song. I love the vibe of it, but I don't expect it to be anything more than what it is. It's just a song, and it makes me feel a way that I really enjoy. But I also have like the next one figured out that I want to do too. And I'm excited to be fearless in my approach to music, because I've done a lot of what you were saying earlier, and feeling like I have to fit some mold or hit some kind of a vibe that mirrors other people's expectations.
Right.
And because of my weird background musically, I when I say that, just for clarity, like I really enjoy orchestral stuff and jazz and, electronic stuff and heavy rock, and like there's just like, and like weird notes that shouldn't be in there, I enjoy that stuff. And so I'm letting that floodgate open up, and I'm getting super excited about it. So that's going to be like the first quote unquote music that I functionally release into the world. I mean, I have a few songs that I did 20 some years ago that but that's it. So
right. I think that's so cool. It's like something that I really admire about you, and like you've been wildly successful in like filmmaking and just everything. You were like, oh, I'm going to do this as a career or hobby, and you always like figure it out,
Yeah.
And I think that's cool. I think it's encouraging. I'm not saying you're old. I'm just saying like being like evolving, like as you like age, and like I've known you for a long time now, and you've done a lot of different things, and I know I have too, but it's like, it's cool to see people that are like constantly like hungry for like, I'm going to try this.
Yep.
I'm going to do this now.
Yep.
And I'm going to learn it. And why not?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Am thrilled to not know things and to be ignorant about certain parts of the process. That isn't frustrating to me. It's motivating. It makes me go, okay, what don't I understand? And sometimes always that process of learning it takes longer than I want it to. But I'm like, I anxiously binge watch and make phone calls and ask questions about the things that I don't understand. And I feel like now though, I'm at that point where I could release a song and feel like I know I'm going to make a ton of mistakes in every single way, but I've at least addressed all of the stepping stones that I'm supposed to do well. Now I can like go through that process, release something and go, okay, cool. Now next time I'll do this better. And
right.
I don't think I've been ready until literally right now. Well, like I say, after I moved to the studio.
Yeah.
So, which I don't think that's going to, maybe I'm dreaming, but I don't think that's going to be a super long process, like maybe a month, couple weeks to a month to get everything moved over and set back up. But yeah.
Yeah. I feel you on that. Moving is very disruptive. I feel like I've moved like 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
In the last like 2.5, 3 years.
I think
it's crazy.
The timing for me personally works really well, because I am planning on now starting to write, record, release, and do that stuff that this was I don't want to call it a practice studio, but it kind of, that's what it was. It was like, or is,
right.
It's beautiful and I love it. But it's all the same stuff's going to be at the next space. So
yeah, I'm kind of digging like moving to different spots.
Yeah.
It's always fun to like have like a block of time where you're like, oh wow, we did all these songs here.
Right.
And then we did all these songs here. It's
Right.
fun. I like having those memories of like different places.
That's so cool.
Obviously some places you're like, dang, I wish I had more space again or whatever.
Right, for sure. But again,
They all have
the
their charm.
the limitations are great. I mean, that bass guitar that we were just looking at, it's like I bought an acoustic bass guitar that has buzzing if you play at any level of volume at all. And then the top string broke literally when I was buying it from the guy at a gas station at night.
Right.
And it's like, well, this is what I have to work with, and I freaking love it. And that is literally the reason that the song sounds the way that it sounds. I couldn't have done it with anything else, So
Yeah.
Anyway, it's fun. It's motivating. And I think you're right. It's like nothing is precious. So just create stuff and enjoy that process and move around and add limitations.
Right. And if you feel like sharing it, like do it. If you don't, then like don't. There's no pressure on either one,
Absolutely.
I think I heard some writers, other songwriters say that. And I think that was actually really helpful for me as a writer to be like, because my brain would always move from like, all right, I just wrote this like chorus hook or this thing. And now I'm like, my brain's already like, I gotta like put this out.
Right.
Which just still happens. It's like as soon as you do anything cool, you want to share it with people.
Yep.
Like, that's just like being a human. I think we all want to share what we do, but sleep on it as a way of giving yourself permission to be vulnerable is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
That's more what I'm trying to say. Like,
and I think also realizing that output, that piece of art is not connected to the value of you as a human.
Mm-hmm.
It's a document of a creative process you went through and a moment that you had. And like, that's it. Doesn't,
Yeah, like started to look at it more like journal entries. That's like, this was this day's feeling. This was the place I was in and the mood and,
Yeah.
back to like what we said earlier about like going to different places, Yeah. It's fun to take a picture or a picture. It's like a good metaphor too.
Right.
It's like, oh, that was this mood and feeling and place.
I love it. Dude, thanks for coming back over.
Oh, of course.
Doing another podcast.
Oh, yeah. Anytime, man. I mean, come over here anyways.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing with other people you think might gain value from it. In summary, anything else you want to share with the world?
Not that I've prepared.
Well, get your speech out.